The following explanation is reserved for acupuncture practitioners. With the exception of Jean-Marc Espy in his book From Symbol to Clinical Practice and my article in the Journal of Chinese Medicine, this way of approaching and understanding extraordinary meridians has not been made known in the Anglo-Saxon world. If you notice, in acupuncture texts, the extraordinary vessels are generally explained after the main meridians, giving the impression that they jump between them, relying on their contact points, instead of underlying and predicting them as they do. So, in my opinion, they should come at the very beginning. On the other hand, I think we have a distorted vision due to the very nature of the classical texts. Because of the way of dealing with extraordinary vessels, especially the one that has become more popular, is the one proposed by the Zhenjiu Dacheng, which speaks of the key points of each extraordinary meridian. Let us review them. For Renmai, lung 7, for Dumai, small intestine 3, for Chongmai, spleen 4, for Daimai, gallbladder 41, for Yinwei-mai, Shimbaoluo 6, neg 1, for Yangwei-mai, Sanjiao 5, Y1, and for the Qiao, respectively, bladder 62 and kidney 6. It is said that these are the points that command the extraordinary meridians. If you notice, in our environment we almost always diagnose the disturbance of an EV or use them almost by exclusion when facing a varied clinic, when you cannot find a thankful that explains everything, or when the patient's symptomatology seems strange, or when the symptoms appear intermittently. Note that we do not use them because we understand them, but rather as last resort, in which case we resort to their key points. Furthermore, the Zhenjiu Dacheng advises us to associate the key points in the way you all know, which you can see in this image. Jean-Marc Isalet states that the key points open the circulation of the essence contained in the extraordinary vessels in order to release it into the general circulation of the other meridians. This is why they are often used as a resource. On the contrary, in our exposition, we have dealt with the intrinsic character of each one of them. These are two different things. One thing is that you can use them as an extra aid to extract resources. But if you cannot diagnose that an EV is lacking and you may use their points, in many cases, what you achieve by using their key point is to end up but exhausting them. The points that, according to Jean-Marc Espy, would act on their intrinsic characterology of each of the extraordinary vessels would be the following. For Renmai, Renmai 2, for Dumai, Dumai 1, for Chongmai, Renmai 4, for Daimai, gallbladder 26, for Yinwei-mai, kidney 9, for Yangwei-mai, gallbladder 35, which this author locates, because here there's discussion, set kun above the external malleolus and 1 kun behind the tibial rim. For Qiaomai, the key points would coincide with their creative points, kidney 6 and bladder 62. That is to say, if what we want to deal with is the alteration of all that has been explained that resonates in each one of the EVs, we should use what Espy called the recreative points. However, according to my personal experience, within the context of each extraordinary meridian, if any other point of the meridian, the ones belonging to Ren and Du, but also the other contact points of the rest of the meridians, which I include in this image, so that you have them all. Either for its functions, for its particular dynamics, or for its clinical indication seems more appropriate, you can also use it, and it works. When we resort to a key point to open the circulation of a qi from an extraordinary meridian to the general circulation, we are mobilizing a huge amount of energy. In some respects, it would be like saying, well, I want to sweep a few wisps in the corridor. Let's flood the corridor. Obviously, it certainly works as a technique, but I fear that in the long term, the patient may suffer major repercussions. We may wonder why the classical texts made this association, and we, who follow the little finger, the Western acupuncturist, I don't know what the Chinese are doing now, we needle one key acupoint and then the other, obeying to the classicals, as if they were that simple. Could there be another explanation that Zhenjiu Dacheng was inviting us to see? I remember Dr. Nguyen Van Gui, who was my first teacher, stating, when we read something in the classical text, we always have to ask ourselves why the text is saying this. What's the reason underlying the association between one key point and another? I'll offer you my own explanation about the meaning of the association between a trunk EV and a peripheral one. Let's see what happens. We associate the key point of Renmai with the key point of Qijingbamai. What does Renmai do? Renmai allows the individual to settle on their land. With the maternal archetype, it is settling one's own earth on the trunk. But this maternal welcome, this acceptance and self-acceptance will make it easier for the person to be rooted in a ground, that is, in an environment or a habitat, Qijingbamai. It's as is the creative function of Renmai trunk EV are embodied in the creative functions of the peripheral Qijingbamai. Of course, we're not talking about the regularity function of the extraordinary meridians. We are talking about an explanation of continuity and development, of how the archetypal is materialized in the concrete through the peripheral CVs to interact with the world. Let's go on with this hypothesis. What if we open Dumai, which allows us to plant ourselves, allows Yang Qiao to plant itself in turn on the ground, in the world? Thus, Yang Qiao Mai, by its action, enables the realization of what Du Mai already feels, unfolding its potential. What if, speaking now of Chong Mai, the great organizer, the great coordinator, allowed its harmonization in the concrete through its aforementioned link with Yin Wei Mai, the peripheral EV that harmonizes the internal? What if, finally, the impulses of the cosmos reverberating on Dai Mai were filtered and modulated in the everyday by the external network of Yang Wei Mai? Wouldn't it make sense to think that when they are talking about these associations of key points by indicating that we must couple two key points, acupoints of enormous global action, the classicals were pointing out the thread of continuity and link between each of the trunk and peripheral meridians? I invite you to try this approach to the extraordinary meridians, which is the one I work with. Using only one point, the addition of any others makes too much noise. I've had the occasion to see and to read case studies solved with the isolated stimulations of an acupoint, which, previously associated with others, had no such effect. I invite you to test the individual resonances of the extraordinaries through their creative points. I also invite you to take into account their other points and to reserve the key points to other acupuncture approaches, which have to take their place as well. I would like to end this presentation by commenting on how, in its global vision of man, Chinese medicine is describing meridians that would allow the embodiment of the archetypal and transcendent in the tangible, and among them, the extraordinary meridians, which are the ones that allow us to go out into life and manifest ourselves, and which also guide our life in the sense that they allow us to renew ourselves from the original impulse with which we remain connected at every moment, and which finally are the architects of our return to unity. In ancient Chinese culture, under the influence of Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism, the so-called Neidan practices were established. It was about an inner alchemy work, in such a way as to encourage the concentration of energies from the lower jiao, ascending upwards, in an increasingly sublimated form. The energies would start from the earth, from the feet at the beginning, starting from Qijingbamai, which is the most peripheral extraordinary meridian, which is in contact with the earth, and progressively ascend in this elaborated alchemical metamorphosis until culminating in Pai Hui at the vertex, a point belonging to Dumai, the most young and celestial central extraordinary meridian. And this would propitiate the return to unity, thus transforming the human being into a transcendent being. I am very grateful for the effort of having followed us here. Thank you very much for joining us. I'd like to share more topics in the future, supposing you've enjoyed this one. See you soon.